All right, so welcome to episode 10 of the Oso Spurs podcast, where today we have Deej,
Hello.
Jonny,
How's it going?
and Ash.
Afternoon all.
So we've got Ash joining us. If you don't recognise him from the past, he's a Saints fan and he's going to give us a bit of insight into what's going on with them, how we expect them to line up, and where the opportunities might be for both sides, but mainly Spurs, I guess. But we'll just quickly as well touch on the result over the weekend, just for 5 minutes to see what people made of it. Jonny and Deej, do either of you want to start with what you made of the game?
I thought that it was, I don't know, it was fine.
You're not particularly impressed, despite are you kind of in the camp of Nottingham Forest are so shit that anyone would have beaten them half decent?
I'm a bit frustrated that Richarlison goal got knocked off because even the line they showed, which I don't think was the correct line, he was pretty reasonably on, and even if like he was off by like a fraction of a centimeter, who cares?
Yeah,
that's not the clear and obvious error, and it's not obvious there was an error even with the lines and whatnot. I don't know. I thought that Nottingham Forest were really bad, but I think we were fine. I think we kind of rested on our laurels a bit to end the game, and that almost gave us a bit of a fright. Probably would have been a bit more scary if we had Hugo in goal, honestly, because no way he's saving that penalty, as bad as it was. But yeah, I think it was okay. Think it was probably a good morale boost regardless, though. So, we take what we can get, I suppose.
what about you, Jonny?
I would be a little bit more upbeat than DJ. Like I think, there's no getting away from how poor Forest were, but I think one of the things that was a bit different from Saturday was the way that we started, because obviously we've been really horrendous in the first half, pretty much every game this season, and the goal was chalked off by Richarlison hit the back of the net like within 3 minutes or something like that. Didn't take that long after that before we got the first goal that counted from Kane. And then, there's a lot of really good performances despite the opposition. And given the two previous matches being so woeful, like it was really important to get that to lift everyone's spirits. And the atmosphere was pretty upbeat in the stadium. It was just really nice to go to a game and not really be stressed about the outcome. Although, like DJ said, did kind of leave it a little bit hairy late on, I guess, with the late goal and then the penalty. So that would have been, we still would have won, but like 3-2 would have been pretty dismal considering how dominant we were. And I just like my mate I was mostly saying, I think we scored the third goal in like around 65th, 70th minute, something like that. And so you kind of hope you're going to get one or two more because goal difference could be important, and we're quite a bit behind at the moment in that front too. So I think maybe that was a bit of a missed opportunity, but it's not like we didn't try and move forward, but probably could have been a bit more aggressive in the closing stages. But a lot of really good things to take from the game. Richarlison was probably the most obvious one, and another great performance from Skip. Romero was excellent again, much more kind of controlled, and Forster was super. So it's kind of now we're set up like we were at the end of last season with the one game a week kind of scenario. We kind of clicked into gear when that happened last year. Just hope it's a repeat of what happened with the run in last season. There's a lot of games to go, a lot of points to play for, and I think at the moment it's like where we were probably before the Sheffield United. We're kind of feeling quite confident that top four was ours to lose, but then we had the intervening games, and it's like Jesus, like losing to Wolves and going out both of the competitions is like much more dismal. So things are positive. It's funny, I listened to a few pods in the last few days, and quite a lot, but I'd say the way we were chatting about afterwards was like we were all like deluded kind of kids who were super excited and just assuming the points were in the bag. I've got a couple of Spurs fans in my class, and they think that one victory and you're going to win the league. But I think we sounded a little bit like that. Most of the other podcasts they're a little bit more like DJ and slightly less, carried away.
I've already seen. Oh, if we win our next 12 games, we could technically win the league.
Yeah.
All that shit's going around again, and the hope that City and Arsenal still got to play each other. But I fully in your camp, guys. It was like they were crap, but it was also the exact fixture we needed, given where we were to get the confidence up. Richarlison needed that kind of performance to get his confidence up. And Forster was pretty solid as well. And I know, Ash, you guys had Forster as your number one for a while, right? He's how did he perform
unfortunately,
for Southampton?
I was at the game where he had a real bad injury. It was right at the beginning of the game. I can't remember. I got a feeling it was against Burnley, quite a few years ago now. But no, there was about a 2-season period where he was untouchable. I think if you remember, he got into the England squad. And he was just a unit, a really good shot stopper. I mean, Xavi said that he was the best English goalkeeper he's ever seen. Remember his time at Celtic. But anyway, he was a fantastic goalkeeper. Unfortunately, the injury to his knee, I think he did his ACL or something like that. It kind of killed him. He came back, showed some real promise in the first few games, but I think his confidence kind of went. And ever since then, he was a highly, highly paid goalkeeper sitting on the bench, and a club like Southampton can't afford it.
It's interesting. I didn't realize he left on those terms. I just assumed he was considered finished goods because he feels like a really solid number two for us that I think we should probably sign up for another season. He's been.
He is. He's a solid goalkeeper.
Yeah, he seems like a good shot stopper. And actually, for a guy his size, seems to have decent, half decent feet. We're only comparing a very low bar with Lloris, who's literally got 2 left feet in himself. So yeah, but we'll jump on Southampton because we probably don't want to waste too much time on Forest. Everyone's exhausted that one to a death. If you guys agree, they were a bit crap. We played well. Not much really more to it than that. Southampton will be a tougher game as it's away, but your guys' home form's been pretty poor, right?
I was going to say, don't be so sure of that. I mean, the story of the season is just a false dawn after false dawn. For example, last month we beat Man City and Chelsea. We just drew away to Man United, and then we lose 2-0 at home to Brentford. So that's what's killing us. We've got a super young squad, and they can't seem to put a run of performances together.
And how about in terms of how you play positional-wise? Like, what's your setup? Are you high press, low block?
It's difficult to say, really. You've got the new manager in, and he's trying to. I mean, when he first came in, he went back to a 4-2-2-2 under that kind of Ralph Hasenhüttl high press style, which most people enjoyed. Obviously, it had its drawbacks. The 2 9-0s are standout drawbacks, you could say. But anyway, I think now the last few games he's sticking with a 4-2-3-1. Which is okay. It's not bad. It kind of suits the players that we've got. But the problem is we cannot score a goal for love nor money. I think since Christmas, since the World Cup's finished, we've only scored 7 goals. 5 of those have come from James Ward-Prowse, and 2 of those, and the other 2 have come from Charlie Alcaraz. So we just can't score. We can't score, and it's going to send us down, unfortunately.
Is that where your head's at? Is it facing relegation as a reality now?
Well, yeah, I mean, the stats don't lie. I mean, we're rock bottom of the table. We've had quite a few opportunities now to get 3 points and climb above the rest, but we haven't taken the opportunities. We put ourselves in a good position, getting a draw against Man United. We picked up a good 3 points against Leicester, which was a little bit lucky, but you take that. But yeah, come Brentford, those are the games that you've got to be winning. I mean, if you want to stay in the Premier League, you've got to beat Brentford at home in these big crunch games. And yeah, we lose 2-0.
And a player that we all murmur about on the Spurs side is James Ward-Prowse. I don't want to start doing that arrogant thing of like, oh, we'll have him when you get relegated. But what's the situation with him at the moment?
I think you've got to face reality. He's going to be on the market if we get relegated. There's no reason why he's going to want to stay with us in the Championship. Personally, for himself, he's looking at trying to get into the England team. Although Gareth Southgate just doesn't seem to fancy him. He didn't fancy him in the under-21s. I remember watching, he was the captain and he got dropped. So Gareth Southgate doesn't fancy him. And he will be in the market because he's now chasing the Premier League free kick record. I think he's 1 away from Beckham. And as I said, he wants to get into the England team. There'll be a lot of clubs after him, I think, in the summer if we go down.
Is he beyond the dead ball situation though, where he's obviously really strong at? What's he like as a player?
He's got a really good engine. So he played with Højbjerg, and they complement each other pretty well. Højbjerg is a real kind of rough and tumble, good central midfielder, but good on the ball. But he's up for it. He gets stuck in. Where Prowse is more, he'll get stuck in, but he'll put the legs in. He'll be running around everywhere, covering the ground. I think he's always highest for distance covered or almost every game. But he's a tidy footballer. He's a very intelligent footballer. And I think he should be playing in Europe. He should be playing in a European competition, whether that's a Europa League or Champions League. He should be playing in that competition, I think.
So you think if you're relegated, it's just a nailed on, he's sold, in your view?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be pretty concerned even if we didn't get relegated, to be honest. The fact that Aston Villa came in from him last summer, and we weren't going to entertain that. But ultimately, if, say, for example, a club like Spurs or Newcastle, if it suits the club, if the club get 50, 60 million for him, and if he wants to go, then I don't think we're going to stand in his way.
And can he play in like a more creative number 10 role?
Yeah, so he had been playing underneath the ill-fated Nathan Jones appointment. He did play almost as like a number 10. So again, we're playing a 4-2-3-1, and he was playing just behind the striker, and he's good. Like he can play that role, but I don't think I think really central midfielder, box to box. I think that's his best position.
It sounds like he could suit our system quite nicely.
No, I think he'll be, as I say, I think he'll be a good player for you. Is he that type of player that's gonna, is he really the creme de la creme of central midfielders? No, but no disrespect, is the creme de la creme ready-made midfielder going to want to go to Spurs? Probably not. So I think he would be a very good signing for Spurs for sure.
Yeah,
and he's been at Southampton all his career, I think, hasn't he? I'm just thinking about the comparison with Letizia is fairly obvious. Like somebody who's, I don't know how many opportunities had down the years to make the move. Even though he's a different kind of player, but just wondering in terms of like where he's at, what his affiliation, what his commitment is. He a local boy? Is it something that like we've got the situation with Kane? He wants to stay at Tottenham, like in an ideal world, but would it be difficult for him to be persuaded to go, or has it just got to that point in his career, in his late 20s, that he's got to face this kind of reality of he's not going to do anything more than he's already done with Southampton, or I don't know.
It's a good question. Ultimately, he is from Portsmouth. His family are Pompey fans,
Right.
but he decided to come to Southampton. Ultimately, back then, I think maybe about 15 years ago, the academy set up in Portsmouth was terrible, really, really poor. So even if people were, diehard Pompey fans, if they had a head on their shoulders, they'd know it's actually a better decision to go to Southampton either way. He made that decision. He says he's a Saints fan. Who knows? When there's a blank check in front of you, I think loyalty's tested, isn't it? And I'm not sure if he would stay if we were in the Championship. I mean, I wouldn't. Why would you if I was him? It's nice, and it's nice to be romantic, and he's going to stay with us, and he'll take us back up. And I hope that is the case. But I'm a bit pessimistic on this one because it's, as a Saints fan, we've seen players come and go all too frequently. So you try not to get too attached.
You look at the table, though. There's a mate I work with who's from Southampton, used to be a season ticket holder, and it's like the situation at the bottom of the table is ridiculously tight. And there's like they're on 22 points, and all the way up to like Crystal Palace are in 12th, and they're 5 points ahead of them. So there's literally maybe 9 clubs.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Just said my internet went, but it's fine.
You're back.
Sorry, you were saying looking at the table?
No, just looking at the table. You're bottom with 22 points, but like you're 2 points behind 17th, and you're only 5 points behind 12th. So like things can change in a couple of games. You know, it's like a bit like the race for fourth. There's like lots of teams dropping points when you don't expect to, and then like Bournemouth picking up the points against Liverpool last week that you probably were a bit surprised by.
Bizarre.
Everybody's surprised by, you know.
Mhm.
So it's quite a long way to go to be, much as it would be incorrect for me to be lecturing another fan of another team in being doom and gloom. Being a Tottenham fan, we're quite good at that ourselves. But I would think that there's hope for Southampton to get out of that.
Ash has obviously got some internet problems, but he'll be back on in a sec. Yeah, and how do you think we're going to line up for the
I'm
game?
not sure
then?
what's going on here. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's right. We'll fix it. Yeah.
No, yeah, doom and gloom. Well, I know. I think if we'd have had this conversation yesterday before the Brentford match, you would have seen a very different side to me. I was pretty bullish after the Man United game because ultimately, you're right. We're only a couple of wins away. If we put together 2 or 3 wins, then all of a sudden, it's looking very different. But it's the fact is we have to win our home games against Brentford. Those are the ones that you've got to be picking up points in. Okay, Brentford are a good team. I not take nothing away from Brentford. They're a good team, but if you're going to stay up, if you're fighting for your life, you have to pick up points. You can't lose 2-0 at home.
Yeah.
No.
And that's it's a dire situation, but you could be right. We got a couple of new players in the window. We got some kid called Mislav Orsic who hasn't barely kicked a ball, so they obviously don't fancy him. We got this big guy from I think it was Genk, Paul Onuachu. Again, looks quite a tidy player. Thought he was quite a good footballer when he came on, but he didn't have a shot. So yeah, that's the problem. If unless we score goals, we're as good as down, and it really doesn't look like changing.
So do you think you're just going to go try set out the stall and get a point against Spurs?
No, I quite like the new coach, this Ruben Celes. He's been a understudy at quite a few different clubs now in a few different countries, so he's obviously picked up good experience. The players have certainly taken to him, but if that, it's just whether or not that translates into points, doesn't it? The fact is, he's done quite well, really. I mean, we've got more clean sheets under him than we did do under the previous 2 managers. So from a defensive point of view, we are much better. But as I said, we just can't score goals. So it all hinges on if a couple of our strikers all of a sudden hit a bit of form, then we could be laughing. We could be laughing. You string, it doesn't take much, does it? One of these players, the new players comes in, they score a lucky goal, then all of a sudden, they can get a run of games and score a stream of goals. But yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to see where it's coming from, because every week it's kind of drab.
I'm just interested from the point of view of living in Dublin myself and go to the Ireland home games, and your keeper is basically their number 1 Irish keeper, but he is a little bit ropey. And when I've seen the highlights of Southampton games, he's definitely culpable of a fair few. He just doesn't seem to have much presence about him. He's kind of the opposite of Forster in some ways. He's not physically, he doesn't impose himself. That's sort of way it looks to me. I guess there's not a lot of competition to get in.
No, I think you're right. It's a good description. He's kind of the opposite to Fraser because he's quite a tidy young footballer. You can tell he's come from a really nice academy, plays out, he does everything in the correct manner. But if you look at him, he still looks young. He's very slim. He needs to kind of fill out a little bit more, get a bit of upper body strength. But yeah, he could be a good goalkeeper, but he certainly hasn't covered himself in glory this year. But I wouldn't write him off by any means. I think he could be a good goalkeeper. I think he will be a good goalkeeper going forward. But such is the situation. We need top players to perform now today, and I think that's what happened in the summer. We went a bit too much too soon. The new owners came in and they wanted to really take the direction that we were going to be, almost like an Ajax, I guess. Just try and get the best young players, bring them in, play them, and then sell them. Reinvest that money and rinse and repeat kind of thing. But I think they did a little bit too much too soon in the summer. We bought a couple of players that were over 25, Joe Aribo being one. Nowhere near the starting squad. Don't know where he's been the last few weeks, frankly. The same with the centre half from Marseille, Duje Shaleta or something like that. Again,
Oh, it's obviously got some bad internet problems. But how do you think we're going to line up then, guys, for the game?
I would hope basically the same
I
as
don't know what's going on.
last time.
But yeah, Croatian centre half, 26 years old, and now again he can't get in the team. So yeah, I think we've had some poor recruitment, and I think we tried to do too much too soon in the summer. Now that's left us in a bit of a poor situation, to say the least.
Yeah. So you're not very optimistic about it, but how are you feeling, Deej and Jonny? How do you think we're going to set up?
I would hope that we would basically line up exactly the same as we did against Nottingham Forest. I think that having the ability to occupy wider spaces higher up the pitch did wonders for him. I think that even regardless of his goal, I think that was one of his better games of the season. I think he really looked up for it. And I think that's just because he had the opportunity to manipulate the space, like both the left half space, and the left flank, instead of having someone parked on the higher left flank that didn't really do anything else. So yeah, hopefully we see another Davies Son left side. I think that Richarlison looked really good. I think that I was honestly really impressed with his ability on the ball, because and I feel like most of his goals kind of felt like controlled chaos, more or less. But I think that his hold up play, he was like an outlet. He had a bit of pace about him, and I think there was a lot of positives to come from that game. And then obviously I think Porro had a game. I think he mentioned something in his most recent interview about taking him a while to learn the language, but if it's taken him only this long to learn the language and he's acclimated as well as he has, I think that's really exciting, and I think he should probably get another start, especially because I would hope that we would be on the front foot a little bit more.
Yeah, great. What about you, Jonny? You thinking similar?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, to be honest with you. I'd be surprised if there's any changes, and I don't think, like we talked before about, who isn't playing that might come in, and there's not. I mean, the obvious one would be Emerson Royal. He has actually been very good in 2023, but I don't think this is the kind of game we wouldn't necessarily need to start with him. And the other player that we're all probably looking forward to seeing more of is Danjuma. So I wouldn't expect him to start, but certainly like to see more of him. I mean, that's kind of, for me, I would have liked to have seen him last weekend, especially the way he got the reaction from Richarlison, didn't he, after the Milan game and the interview in the comments, and then Conte threw Richarlison in, and he lived up to his billing and his hype, his self-promotion. And there's like an interesting post yesterday from Danjuma on his social media with all these clips of him doing all this extra training and stuff, looking really sharp. And, he's obviously desperate to get in. As a sort of player, he's not like an Ndombele, he just wants to pick up his wages. And, he's only been brought in to the end of the season, hasn't he? So, why have we got him? Let's bring him in. He looked good in that Preston kind of cameo that he had. So I would really like to see him getting a decent shift off the bench, but I wouldn't change the starting lineup at all. I think Davis is looking really solid on the left wing back. Definitely our best option there, which is surprising, given the role he's played before, and given that Perisic, the experience he's had. But Perisic has been quite disappointing really this season. So yeah, I really hope that Sonny can, those glimpses we've had from the Forest game, that he can maybe have the end of the season that's a bit more familiar. It might be, Southampton might be the kind of opponent where he gets a bit more freedom and a bit more of an opportunity to show what he can do. It's that thing about when you're watching football and we're getting into late March, April, and the sun's starting to come out, and there's something it depends if you're, maybe, no offense to Ash, but if you're in relegation battle, maybe it's completely the opposite. But, watching football in the sun and going along whenever it's not quite shorts and t-shirt weather yet, for sure. But I kind of have good memories of the positive performances at the back end of the season. I think I'm more confident now than I would usually be before a Spurs game. Even though, having said that, like we got beaten at home by Southampton last season, and we drew with them away. And we
What
were
a
a bit
game that
unlucky,
was,
I
by
think.
the way.
Say that again.
What a game that was, by the way.
Yeah.
Is that the one where there was red card as well?
Yeah.
We had, yeah. It does tend to
I
be a
just
really
remember
good game,
3-2.
you guys. Yeah. Oh, the 3-2. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sorry. Yeah, we do tend to have good games. Like
Mm,
historically, went through a phase of always seeming to beat you in the last 5 minutes of a match.
mm.
Like Bale's, I don't remember Bale's
Yeah, I
screamer at White
remember,
Hart
yeah.
Lane. That only just lost Luke Shaw,
Yeah.
and just banged it in with 5 minutes to go. But we do seem to produce quite good games. So
Yeah,
I'm not.
Harry Kane loves scoring against us, I think.
He does, but I'm not treating this like a foregone conclusion at all. We're in a weird place as a club where like one win and it feels like we've turned this corner, and we look at the table like, well, of course we're good. We're fourth. Like, of course we're good. We can go on a run now, and it'll be just like last year where we dump out of ourselves at all the competitions, and we just turn into Conte's machine in the league, and you're winning 4 out of 5 consistently. But then we just get these sudden reality checks that you guys beat Leicester without disrespect to Hampton, and we get smashed by them 4-1.
I know, bizarre. We spoke about it, didn't we, actually, I think.
Yeah. It's just we're in a really, really weird place at the moment.
And I think we are as well, because as I said, poor last night, but then we looked really good against Man United on Sunday. So, don't be surprised if we do turn up this weekend. That's the thing. You just don't know what we're going to, nobody knows what we're going to get. And that's kind of the running joke at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be worth just touching on Poch as well, because that's something we've all kind of affiliated with. From the outside, Ash, like when you knew Pochettino as Southampton fans, what was two questions really? What was your view of him from a Saints perspective?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this constant argument between Spurs fans that he's a great coach, but he wants full command and control of the club as well when he's there. But his signings are very hit and miss. What was the view from the Saints fans when you had him as a manager?
Brilliant. Great coach, brilliant tactician, great man manager. I think he was probably one of the best coaches we've had in a very long time. Really disappointed to see him go. And it was evidence. He completely transformed Spurs, didn't he? I remember you guys were a bit of a laughing stock before he came in, and he made you one of the best teams in Europe. So I think he's a really, really top manager. And I think if you go back for him, they always say don't go back, but I think Poch. I think he's got. I think you have to get him again if you can. I would 100% be getting him all day long.
What do you reckon, DJ? So would you take him back as things stand, or we're in this 3-dimensional thing, Ash? We're in a triangle of Conte gets a couple of results. Oh, maybe he'll stay. He's such a knee-jerk character and so emotionally driven that when things are going well, he wants to stay. And we shouldn't just bail on a project halfway through it. The other camp are like, we want that nostalgic Poch era back. We're sick of negative football. That's proven.
The thing. It's horses for courses. I know it's a bit cliche, but Antonio Conte works really well with a big budget, basically. A fantastic coach, but he needs the players to fit his system, and he doesn't seem to have the patience to put up with younger players. So are you going to give him that? I'm not so sure. Spurs' history is more about trying to find players, bring them on, and usually you sell them for a profit and reinvest. So just looking at it from that perspective, I would think Poch is the better fit, or at least a better type of manager, because he fits the way you're governed from upstairs.
Yeah. What do you think, DJ?
Yeah. I think I've done a bit of reflecting, having been away from the podcast for like a week or so, and I kind of cut off most of my, I basically left social media, just kind of decided to really figure out where I stood with the management without having people telling me I'm stupid every time I look on the timeline. But I think I've come to a position where I think that despite some of the football we play looking horrible, I do think it may be worth it to keep Conte around if he wants to stay. If we can not just like another 12-month deal, if we can nail him on for like a 3-year deal or something like that, I think that, because I really don't think we're that many players away from his system. I think we're probably a left center back and maybe another left wing back, potentially a center mid if Bentancur comes back a shell of himself, and then we can argue all we want about left wing, right wing, whatever. But
3 years for Conte though, DJ, you're really putting your balls on the table with that one.
Yeah, because I just don't think that we should start over. But I think if we do start over, I do think it should be Poch. I don't think, if we don't have the players for Conte's system, we absolutely do not have the players for Enrique's system. We would need to basically build from the ground up, because like I'm sorry, even like I don't think like even like Højbjerg I don't think would be a great fit for like an Enrique type play where he's all about, you know, quick passing and the like, and Højbjerg is very much just a to use a phrase from Twitter, a passion merchant. Though I do think he's underrated. I do think his passing is better than we give him credit for, but I don't think it's good enough for an Enrique system. I think that under ideal conditions at Spurs, way back when, not even way back when, but back under the Poch days, we did play a 3-back. So I don't think that would be that big of an issue, because, you know, obviously one of the biggest concerns that I have about switching a manager is that we have Destiny Udogie coming in, who's one of the brightest left wing backs in world football, and then Pedro Porro, who I think is one of the brightest young right wing backs in world football. I think that, ironically, in probably 1 or 2 seasons, I think wing back will go from being our weakest position to pretty easily our strongest, except for striker, obviously, if Kane stays. But I think that if we do go for a new manager, I think we need to get one that plays 3-back. But I also think that if Conte will stay, I think that we should bring him back with a set of expectations that he doesn't throw the club and everyone else under the bus. Like, needs to be some conversations that are had, but I think that there is a balance that we can have with Conte where we can end up being successful.
It does seem like the club's managing that now, isn't there? Like in the program notes, him apologizing. He seems to be suddenly talking more positively about being here all of a sudden, and there's not this kind of like resigned choice of words, which is basically setting expectations to his boss that he wants to leave at the end of his contract. It kind of feels more again like, prove to me we're on the up, prove to me you're going to back me, and I might hang around. But I think this period's done us some good, because Conte had too much authority to the point where it was like, you're grateful to have me. Where I think it's been a bit of a realization that actually, Conte, your Italian options are fast running out, and where else are you going to go, mate? So buckle up and enjoy the ride of us, or you can go back home and find yourself out of a job for another season or two. And your reputation's not in a great place after the last 12 months here with us either. So maybe there could be a change in attitude from him. That would be positive. So yeah, but we'll see. And the point on Enrique, that's very true as well, right? Like, if we get him in, the whole system has to change all over again. And as I've been told, like, our midfielders do not suit Enrique's way at all. So yeah, it's going to be a whole new summer rebuild, which will be very, very painful for us to go through. I just don't think I could bear it to go through all that again. So for me, it's stick with Conte as plan A, Pochettino as plan B, and Enrique as plan C. That's kind of it.
I don't even think that Enrique would be plan C for me. I think that we should stay as far away from Enrique as possible. I think that if we were to not go with Poch, I think we should go with either throw a bunch of money at De Zerbi or take a risk on Gallardo, because he obviously unproven in Europe, but from what I've seen of him, he is a fantastic manager.
Nathan Jones is available, guys.
I think we're good.
Well, interesting. Like Johnny's got a friend in Spain who's a football coach, and he gave a very, very kind of like more tactical view on Enrique, and basically said like, don't rule this out and get so nostalgic to Poch, because Enrique is seen actually as a very forward-thinking manager who we give Conte a lot of sympathy for what happened in his personal life. Enrique's 9-year-old daughter died of cancer. Like that guy's been through a lot of shit himself. People don't give him sympathy for that, but he's a very kind-hearted, kind of open manager with the fan base. And he didn't think that his system necessarily needs, suddenly world-class Messi type players in there to work. How he works is he puts players into zones, a bit like Pep does. He says like Kulusevski would probably flourish under him, was his point. You hold that part of the pitch, and it's your own responsibility to figure out how you play on that part of the pitch. And you just play to your strengths and you enjoy yourself. So it's kind of like a bit more of a balanced system between what we have under Conte, or would have under Harry Redknapp. Go out and enjoy yourself, play how you want, kind of thing. So I'm kind of more open to Enrique since I spoke to Scotty. Jonny, what do you think?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I from what I've heard, I agree with you, and I'm certainly not as benevolent in my view towards Conte, or as hopeful that there's actually much chance that we're going to be able to really persist with him, or he'll persist with us. I just don't see his personality being open to that much kind of maneuvering. I think he is what he is. Like I've only changed my thoughts on supporting him very recently, to be honest with you. Some of the comments that he's made, and just I guess the cup exits have kind of thrown a line under it. But I don't see his heart in it. And yeah, there may be a little bit of management in terms of the things he's been saying more recently. But I mean, I watched the press conference today for the Southampton game, and he just looks like death warmed up. He looks horrendous. He looks like, that you troll out these before and after kind of photos of like, what he's like when he's given the job at Tottenham. What he looks like now is, it's like Obama when he's fresh faced and then he's got grey hair. It's like, that's he's been through a lot of crap. I think what you said, Jim, about him trotting off back to Italy at the end of the season. If we've got fourth place or third place under Conte and he stays to the end of the season, I think that's hopefully quite a strong possibility. I'm certainly not saying probability, but I think if we get into Champions League again under Conte and he says goodbye, then I think that's the best outcome all around. I think I think to get consecutive top four, having not been in the Champions League for a couple of seasons before that, is a decent effort. And I think with the teams that are above us, okay, Arsenal's a whole different story, but I think generally speaking, you can't really argue with expecting to do any better realistically.
Yeah.
So I think that I don't think his reputation would, having left Tottenham in that situation, would be any worse than it was before he came in. Well, might not be enhanced a whole lot, but I don't think it's going to be worse.
In my view as well, like Conte, when we brought him in at the time, people forget the whole context to what a shit show Spurs are in. Like we'd fallen out of the Champions League for 2 seasons. We'd been rejected by several managers. Brendan Rodgers had just rejected us.
Yeah.
And Potter had just rejected us. We panicked into Nuno because the season had started and refused to come back from his holiday in the Caribbean. And we looked so down and out. Like we lost that game to Man United. Nuno was we looked so gone. And then we managed to pull off this Conte signing. We all said, like, it's an 18-month contract, but who cares? Because given the options, I'd rather have this guy for 12 months, get back in the top 4, and then we know it's going to end in tears and he'll leave probably at the end. But if we're in the top 4, he steadied the ship. We can find a proper manager for the long term and we can move on. And if you think about it, that's exactly what happened. But the fan base, we all go like, Conte wins wherever he goes. We're going to win something, forgetting that we're Tottenham. We're not Man City. We're not Chelsea. We're not just going to go, here's 11 amazing players in season 1, win something in season 2, and then we'll wave you off. It was more like, I'll steady the ship, let your finances stabilize after COVID in the stadium, and then someone else can come in and I can go back to Italy because no one else wants me at the moment. That's kind of exactly how it's played out.
Yeah.
With
I
some,
mean, I think what DJ was saying before, I agree, like his whole reset and going away and reflecting on the situation with the manager. Like, I've done the same thing, and I kind of flirted with that analysis of the situation, but I think at the same time, because you do look at, Arteta's a very different manager, but this is the 2 8th place finishes and then the 5th place finish, and now they're like on the cusp potentially of winning the league. There's lots of instances, like Klopp obviously was given quite a lot of time as well. It is, you are naive if you think that a manager is going to come in, even if they're a proven winner, and establish themselves and win trophies just by turning up with a reputation. So I think in an ideal world, if he had a slightly more open approach, then I would be totally up. It's not like I'm just wanting to get rid of it. Like, I was singing the Antonio chants like everybody else in stadium. I love his passion. I love the way he was talking about the club in the first season, where we were this time last year. I was like absolutely delighted, with the manager we had. And I'm still like, I don't have any grudges against him. Don't like the way he's spoken about Tottenham plenty of times. He's been very disrespectful, but I'd be delighted if what DJ was saying could actually happen. I just don't think that he's the personality that's actually capable of doing that or has the desire to do it with Tottenham. But I'd be absolutely delighted to be proven wrong. I'd be really delighted to be proven wrong. So yeah,
we're going to have to wrap up in a sec, but DJ, start with you. What do you think's to summarize the score going to be on the weekend?
I think it'll be 2-1. I think Southampton will score first, though, because whenever there's a team that needs help scoring, we got you covered.
Yeah, that's true. What's your gut say, Ash?
I'm going to go, even though I've been incredibly probably dull and demotivating. Yeah, I'm going to go for a Saints 2-1 win.
Ooh, interesting. What do you reckon, Jonny?
I was going to say the same as DJ, but I'm gonna I don't want to be a copycat, so I'm going to say 3-1 Tottenham. I'm hopeful, which is dangerous.
We are the gift that keeps on giving, so you
so.
could be all right.
Yeah, with your lack of firepower, I'm going to say we're going to give you your misfiring strikers a confidence boost by letting them score first, and then we're going to come back and score 3 in the second half and win it. And
don't give any fouls away around the box. That's all I would say.
Well, that's it actually, and that is exactly what we could. Like, Romero just can't help himself. Like, it could easily switch in the sense that you play to that. Your manager goes, just piss him off. Get that booking on the edge of the box that he does every game in the first 30 minutes, score a free kick, and then just put 11 men behind the ball. And if teams that do that against us, we have no creative midfielders. We don't have Bentancur because he's out injured for the season. We've got 2 holding midfielders. No creativity at all. We just put Kane deep and just go, please pull off something special.
Yeah, he normally does, though, doesn't he, to be fair?
He does against Southampton as well. So, yeah, but I'm going to be optimistic and say 1-0 at half time, but 3-1 up. 3-1 win for Spurs. Let's see. But that's it, boys. I've got to jump. But thank you very much for joining, guys. And come on, you Spurs.
Thanks.
Come on, you Spurs.